Welcome back to FLL New Coach Training. This is the second section. This will cover the robot game project and core values. So we're going to just go back over who is who here. My name is Frank Larkin. I'm the FLL director at Mid-Atlantic Robotics. You are all part of the FIRST program, a global robotics community that's working with kids to prepare for their futures. That's what FIRST is. FIRST is actually located up in Manchester, New Hampshire, but they're a global organization. And they work very closely with LEGO. We are FIRST Mid-Atlantic. We're a 501c3 nonprofit that runs FIRST programs in New Jersey, Delaware, and Eastern Pennsylvania. You can see our area here. This is FMA FLL, PA East, and FMA FLL, New Jersey North. It's two areas. These are probably the two largest regions that we have in Pennsylvania in terms of the number of teams. And we're a part of this FIRST Mid-Atlantic. FIRST Mid-Atlantic is an organization that runs another FIRST program called FRC, and it runs it in Eastern PA, New Jersey, and Delaware. But for FLL, it's just PA East and New Jersey North, but who knows what's going to happen in the future. So FMA FLL, again, PA East, New Jersey North, Frank Larkin, and Ernie Jachico. Ernie Jachico is the New Jersey North Regional Director. He's been running the program there for 15 years. And so he manages the teams in that area, and I manage the teams in the PA East area. But we work together closely to make sure that the way we're running the competitions and the rules we're following are in lockstep and are the same. The only difference probably is the dates in which we run things. Okay, the website. On our website, we have different places to get information. And one of the places you can get information is FLL Challenge Team Info. And here is our website. To get here, you go to firstmidatlanticsrobotics.com and you click FLL. And then you have these menus here where you can go do whatever you need to do. FLL Challenge Team Info, come down here, click, and you're at this page. All right. Now, here I have a section called Coaches Required Reading. There are several other sections in here. For example, if you wanted to go look at Spike Prime, you could go look at Spike Prime. Here's a bunch of things that are a discussion of Spike Prime. In fact, we're going to be adding more stuff to this. So if you want to use Spike Prime, maybe you can use this to help you figure out how to use that system. You can then come back here and say, go back to topics, and you're back here at the top. One of the things that I did create was Coaches Required Reading, and it's designed to give you all of the information you need to participate as a FIRST Challenge team at our competition. And it includes information from FIRST, like the forms and things that you need to fill out, the FIRST registration system that you need to register your kids. And one of the great things that's on here is this FIRST season page info or info page. If I click that, I come in, and if I go down to season resources, the red here is FIRST Tech Challenge. This is all of the information that FIRST puts in one place so that you'll be able to go one place to get as much as you can on what you need to do. And that includes the mission model build instructions, game table build instructions, challenge overview, robot game. All of that information is right here. FIRST did a great job in putting this together. So that's why I'm showing it to you. So here is your table. And this is a table on top of the 4x8 table that you will have to build for this competition. A couple of years back, they shortened what we call the mat, which is this mat that you all probably received already, a rolled up mat that goes on it. And besides this mat, you have what's called a base area to launch your robot from. And then we have the bonus area. All of that is described in the documents that you have, what those are used for, okay? But your robot is going to leave from here and go out and do missions, and it can return to any of this space at the end. It can come back anywhere. So that's essentially it. All of the missions are out there. Some of them are being put down with door lock to keep them from moving, but this is basically the field that you'll be running your robot game on. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the judging process. And intermixed in that is also going to be advice on how you actually do the different things we're going to be asking you to do. So at the competition, you're going to have consolidated judging. What that means is there'll be 3 or more judges in the judging rooms. A lot of times there may be additional judges because you never know, one judge gets sick and so you schedule more than you need, but we also use that as training for new judges. It used to be where you had one discipline was in one room, another discipline was in another, and so forth. That is no longer happening. You have no expert judges. All judges have the same sway on the outcome. So even though in the past one judge might have been a project judge, they can still comment on how a child or a student did in talking about their robot. And we are going to be training them, training those non-technical judges so that they can comment on technical information. One of the great things about that FLL season page that I showed earlier is the judging season flowchart. Okay, so I'm going to click that. So this is available on that seasons page. So this is what the judging session is going to look like. You'll come in and there'll be about 2 minutes while you set up your materials. The lead judge in that room might read a welcome piece. And then you're going to go right into it. 5 minutes of your presentation. You have 5 minutes to put together a scripted presentation about your project solution. And that can be anything. Could be a skit. You could use a PowerPoint. The problem sometimes with PowerPoints and some of those other things is now you have to have a computer. Yeah, having a small screen with the PowerPoint is tough for the judges to see. So you have to think about that kind of stuff. In addition, you're not going to be able to plug into 110 volt power. You're not going to be able to throw it up on a screen. So you have to think that through. We suggest that you put together a board and have your students talk to what's on the board. Visual aids with hand cards that they could hold up. Anything like that could help. We also then have 5 minutes of question and answer from the judges on the presentation that you just presented. And we suggest that you try to answer truthfully. We'll talk in a minute about the difference between knowing about a topic and fully understanding the topic. And maybe that will make it somewhat clearer. But it's important that you don't waste a lot of time with a lot of information because the judges are really trying to look to see if you know what it is you're talking about the project. Okay, so it's really important they concentrate on that. Okay, after that, we go into the robot design process. And in that process, and they will tell you, okay, we're switching to robot design. And you have to be prepared to go right into it. And you can give between a 3 and a 5 minute presentation on your robot design, talking about the different things. It's important to talk about what the robot has on it, how it did what it's doing, the sensors you're using, because judges are particularly interested in the sensors that you're using, because more sensors give the robot the ability to navigate the field better. Anything that could stick in a judge's mind to say, hey, I want to ask more questions about that because that sounds interesting. Those kinds of things would interest a judge. After the 5 minutes of the explanation, we will switch to the robot design Q&A, where the judges will ask pointed questions, and we will go over some example questions. And again, it's important that knowing versus understanding comes into play here, and we'll touch on that. Now, because we've eaten up so much of that time, at the end of it, they have created what they call core values reflection. In the past, you were allowed to build a core values poster and bring it into the room, and you had 5 minutes to talk about that. We don't have that kind of time. So what the judges are instructed to do is ask certain kinds of questions of the teams, ask different questions about the core values and how they're finding the competition and how they're finding working with other people. It's all about working with other people and being gracious and professional with everybody. So that's the part that's going to be core values. And then they're going to give you 5 minutes of feedback of your overall presentation. And you have to tell kids that, look, this is important that you listen to what the judges have to say. It doesn't mean you did bad. It doesn't mean you did good. It's a judge, somebody who is looking at this from the outside, telling you what it is that they thought about what you did. They might make suggestions for improvement. They might comment on things that they thought were really good. And the feedback may not always be positive. It might be, well, you could try this, you could try that. But it's important that your kids get that kind of feedback so they can see what it is. While we want everyone to have a good time, and they do, we want them to come away with knowing that they tried and they have a good feeling. They are going to sometimes give them some comments about, well, you might try to do this or you might try to do that, all in a gracious and professional way. And then we're going to leave 10 minutes to 15 minutes for the judges to do the rubrics, do the scoring, discuss what your team did before we move on to the next one. First is suggesting 10 minutes. Some of my coaches in PA East like 15. I think New Jersey, they were more comfortable with the 10, but that'll be a choice for the individual competition to figure out what they want to do. We also have the judging rubrics, and these judging rubrics are available to you. You can see what the judging is going to be like. I think, do they have the questions? No. These are the actual judging rubrics that we use, basically the scorecard for your teams and how they're judged, okay? So those are the topics, and those are the things that you should be concentrating on when the judges are talking to them. Project judging, as we said, is going to be first. So what you're trying to do is we're trying to get your team to solve a real world problem. That's what the project is. That's what we're doing here. This is Cargo Connect. So it might be something about, doing something with transportation or doing something with a trucks or some kind of moving things around, that kind of thing. For example, a couple of years ago, it was having to do with making people want to get outside more. One of the teams created a biodegradable mosquito trap that they could make cheaply and stick into wooded areas and trails to allow the things to catch mosquitoes. I think there was ticks involved, and eventually the thing would just catch them, kill them, and the thing would just rot away back into the environment. And so that was pretty cool. But I mean, that's the idea. How do we make the place a better place for people to get out and do stuff? So solving real world problems, right? That's based on this year's theme. Now, I probably talked to a lot of this, but so you want to create an innovative solution for that. The problem often is personal to one of the team or a team member, maybe something in their family or something, and it might be a problem. They go, hey, I have blah, 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 and maybe we could work on that. But there are enough problems out there in the world where you could go find a problem that you could solve. I can't stress enough, a field trip and expert research. This is very, very important. And quite frankly, it impresses the judges when they see the kind of background information that you got. Many teams come in and say, well, we talked to another teacher in the building. That's fine, and that is good. If that person was a PhD on the expert in the field, that would be better. But as I said, we suggest you go out and try to find people that will discuss with you their field and what it is that they do and how this project works with that. In fact, it's interesting. We had a one that I remember where the woman developed a wire that threaded to material, and it was all made from piezoelectric devices. So when the fabric fluttered in the wind, it generated electricity. And the kids created a project that took that into advantage and used that. And she said, you're the very first people that ever come back and talked about that research that I did. And so that was pretty exciting. And the judges were impressed by the fact that here's this woman that had all of this stuff, all of this background in that concept. So that was pretty exciting. And you want to encourage your students to think of questions and ask questions and start thinking about those problems and solutions from day one. Next meeting you go to, say, guys, we have to think of a solution for some of these projects. Let's start thinking about it, all right? And get them thinking about it. So you can also reach out to the community, local business, university organizations, contact all of those professionals, have the students consider the needs in the community. sit down with the community and go through it and say, you know what, we might be able to have this if we could make that happen, and this might be good, because it might be something that you actually go on and do once the competition is over. You want teamwork and a sense of community are really necessary. So this is great for your team getting out in the community and helping. All right, so solution. Steps. Find a real world problem based upon where we are this year, which is Cargo Connect, right? Create an innovative solution, something different, something no one else has done. And then you want to share your research and your solution with others. You can share with audience that can benefit from the solution. If it is that unique, you might want to consider going into getting a patent. And we have had a number of teams around the world who've patented different ideas because they were thinking about a problem and a solution that no one had thought of. We suggest you don't try to reinvent the wheel. The project should be a realistic, scalable, supported by research and development. We're not talking anti-gravity here, okay? But we are talking about something that you might go, here's something we could do in the community, make it a project, okay? You can also build on ideas and solutions from others, right? If you go look at some research, somebody might take something so far and you look at it from a different perspective and you go, we could probably do this. And that could be your solution. And there's nothing wrong with building on their ideas. They would be thrilled that you did that. Okay, so when you're presenting to the judges, right, you are presenting for 5 minutes. Your judges must see that you accomplished all 3 steps of the project that were complete, right? You must show how the project was relevant to the season challenge, okay? You must try not to run over 5 minutes, or the judges may stop you, right? Sometimes these presentations get going and just keep rolling, and all of a sudden they're stopped by the judge because we have to ask questions for 5 minutes. So you may want to plan it for 4.5 minutes if you can. That actually gives the judges more time to ask questions. And they want to hear about your process. Who did you talk to? Where did you get the idea? Blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. They want to know about the process, right? And that is in your presentation. They want to hear about the potential for the solution and what is needed to make it a reality. Again, it doesn't have to be a world-changing thing. It could be, but it might be something that helps your community. And because you did a better job getting it all together and understanding it, you might win because the others are trying to go too big and haven't done as good a job behind the scenes as you have. First also has something called the Global Innovation Award. And one of the shames of this competition, I would say, or shames or downsides, is sometimes you spend all this time doing this project and you're not judged to be as good as others, right? Because maybe your presentation wasn't so good, or maybe something else wasn't so good, but your solution was really good. It's a really good idea. And with a little work and a little understanding, you might make this into something bigger. And that's what the Global Innovation Award is for, okay? There are pages out there, FMA, info pages have the Global Innovation Award links. You can go see what that's all about. But think about it this way. We recognize that some of these solutions are really good, but maybe the other things around it aren't as good. So what we do is look out for those that are worthy to move on to become our region's Global Innovation Award nominee. And so if you go to a qualifier tournament, we appoint 2, and I'm not sure if New Jersey does it this way, they may or they may not. We appoint 2, one from the qualifier that you went to, and then the team that went on, any team that went on to the championship is also eligible to be picked as another one. And so in total, there might be 8 or 9 teams at the championships that are now rejudged, the solution portion only, to be picked for the Global Innovation Award. The top solution will be sent to first for what they call a GIA consideration. And you can read all about what that is. Essentially what happens is the top 20 solutions around the world are selected, and they go to a special thing sometime in June for Global Innovation Award. It's very exciting for the teams that get a chance to do that. Okay, so make sure you read up on that. So now we're going to move into robots. So robot tips. Consistency is the biggest problem, right? You'll say, oh, well, it worked at home, but it doesn't work here. Well, okay, you have to be, when you get to the competition, you have to make sure that you are able to react to that. How do you fix that? How about using line following instead of dead reckoning? Dead reckoning is you point it, you turn it on, and boom, off it goes. But if you can detect the lines and follow the lines, you may be able to have it more repeatable, okay? You have to try to use fixed assets on the walls as field elements, and a lot of times you'll see robots will turn and back up into a wall. What are they doing? They're taking the robot to straighten it, because it may be angled incorrectly, so if they turn, they may not be at the right angle, but if you turn back up into the wall, you're now going to straighten out, and then you go forward, okay? A robust robot is more stable and more reliable. In other words, stuff not falling off it, stuff not jiggling all over the place. The jiggling can actually make it go in the wrong direction. So when building and designing your robots, you have to think about those kinds of things, okay? When you go to the field itself, you know how the field is placed within the table. There's no requirements that the mat has to be up against one wall or another. You can inquire about that at the competition, but there may be no guarantee that that's where it's going to be. So you have to worry about that kind of stuff. There are different ways you might have to be able to fix that, but those are some of the things you have to worry about. You have to make the students responsible for setup. This includes where the elements are supposed to be and any problems on the field before the round starts. If there's something wrong with one of the field elements, you have to be able to go to the referee and say, look, this is not set up correctly. I would like that corrected. And the referee will go and correct that. So make it the responsibility of the students to do that, okay? Because they're the ones that are looking at this thing every day, and they are the ones that are really supposed to know how this works. When you're at home, introduce variables during your practice. Bumpy mat, changes in the lights, flashlights showing on the field, things on the walls that you may or may not be able to get rid of once you're at the competition. And do that to see if it's going to cause your robot a problem. Change the level of the field, not too much, a little bit, and see if that's going to cause you a problem, okay? But all of that will make you hyper aware of any differences between you and what's on the field. If you get to your field and it's completely not level, you could go to the referees and say, guys, this thing is way off. But you must be able to handle a little bit of it not being perfect, because think of all the fields we have out there. They're not going to be put up with transients and make sure that they're space quality hardware. So you're going to be up against that. So let's talk about robot programming. First made a decision a couple of years ago that any language that you want to use is acceptable. So I'm going to talk about the different languages. And in the process of me making this, there's a great wiki out there. Let me go see if I can click it real quick. And this is all about FLL challenge programming, okay? Look at all this information. This is all about EV3, Spike, right? And that's where a lot of this information came from. So what do we have? Programming languages, Lego Mindstorm's EV3G. That was the original version of EV3 that was shipped until fall of 2020. That has been replaced by Mindstorm's EV3 Classroom, which is what they call Scratch. It's a programming language that your kids may already be learning in school. And that has been being shipped since the fall of 2020. EV3 can also be programmed in Python. Python is a traditional language. I happen to know Python, but your robot can be programmed in that. It's not going to matter to the judges which one of these you choose. It's really up to you. Okay, now that's just EV3. You also have a new thing called Spike Prime, which was introduced last year. And it uses, oh, look, it uses Scratch. They call them word blocks. And that same wiki also describes a lot of the Spike stuff. You can also use Spike prime Python. So if you want to do that, you certainly can do that. You also can use the Lego Mindstorms NXT, okay? And they call the original language that came with that NXT-G. It turns out the NXT is now used by everybody and their uncle to program Lego. And if you go to that wiki site, it's a different wiki site, you will see all of the different languages that you could program in if you really wanted to. Okay? Now, we hope there's not going to be too many of those. And FIRST realizes that you have to be able to allow students to program in anything they want, because the person who is the teacher or the coach to help them might understand this, that, or the other thing. So now we're going to talk about robot design judging. Okay? There is no challenge table in the judge's room. Years ago, the event coordinator had to supply another table for each of the judges' rooms. Now, we might have had, and a complete mat and all the kits, and we might have had 4 judges' rooms. And because of that, that meant an additional 4 tables. So the decision was made to remove that because it makes everything a lot easier. You can bring your robot and a computer, but it has to be on battery power, and it should already be up and running when you go in the room if you're going to show anything from it. The judges can't wait there while you power it up. So you're going to do robot presentation. You do an official kind of presentation. Be prepared to discuss the robot and the design process in the presentation. Tell the judges the sensors you're using, all of that. We are asking you not to include videos of the runs, okay? And we'll explain the reason for that in a minute. But some teams lately haven't been including that. In fact, I was encouraging it last year because I thought it was a better way to do it. We don't want you to do that if you can avoid it, okay? After that, we're going to have 5 minutes of Q&A, okay? And that'll include mechanical programming and strategy and innovation. And that's what the rubrics all call out. So, sample questions. It's important, and Ernie and I have been working on this, and we will be explaining to our judges what we want here and what we mean. And it's really the judges want to see if students understand what they are doing, okay? And you can read all of these sample questions. We really are going to target the questions to be concise and short so that we can ask more questions to get into more different things. Because if a child begins to speak for 3 minutes on an answer, now your whole time has been used up. And so that's not a good use of the 5 minutes. So let's talk about knowing versus understanding. A student comes out and says, our robot uses synchronized drives. Now, you guys may not know what that is. You'll see what it is in a minute. The judge might say, okay, well, what does that do for your robot? And somebody who knows about it would say, well, it helps us go straight. They just know it helps us go straight. They don't know anything else. But someone who understands it is going to say they automatically help us go straight by keeping track of how far each wheel has turned. If the left wheel goes ahead of the right, the robot will slow it down to allow the right to catch up and keep the robot going straight. That's a child who understands what this is doing. So it's more than just knowing, oh, it helps us keep going straight. It's understanding what it does. Okay, and this is not hard for them to understand it. They can be taught this, and they will now have an understanding. And then they may have ideas that, oh, we could do this because they understand it better. Here's another example. A student says, our robot follows the line. Oh, the judge says, okay, tell me how it does that. The robot who knows that it follows the line might says, oh, it uses the light sensor. Well, okay, because they heard from somebody who said, oh yeah, we're using the light sensor to follow the line. Somebody who understands it says it uses the light sensor to see the map. It is only used when we know the sensor will be over the dark part of the map. Then we start a loop. When the sensor sees dark, we tell the robot to move forward and slightly turning to the left. When the sensor sees the light area, we tell the robot to keep moving forward and slightly turning to the right. Now imagine what that looks like in your head, and you're going to see this robot kind of kind of swimming down the line. And that's exactly what it does. That's exactly a way to do it. Okay. So that's the difference. We want the child to understand what it is that they're doing. And you can practice those kinds of things with them. We don't have a problem with that, because they'll understand it just from you, having that discussion. So we want to keep the answers short, but show that you understand versus just have knowledge of the topic. All right. Do not go into long technical explanation of how this works on an electronic or a mechanical level. We, for example, had a child sitting there telling us all about, well, the gyro uses piezoelectric devices that allows it to blah, 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 and went on and burned up the whole 5-minute thing. And that was it. Okay. You can't do that. And we may stop them. We're going to encourage our judges to stop them and say, wait a minute, what does this device give you and how do you use it in your program? That's what's important. In other words, what does it give you, right? The light sensor gives you a number. If it's a high number, it's light. If it's a low number, it's low. That's it. And now you use that to do something with it. It's the same thing here. For example, with the gyro, it gives you a negative number or a positive number. If it's 0, you're going straight. If it's negative, you're going to the left. If it's positive, you go to the right. You tell it to steer a little bit into the direction you're going, it'll go straight. That's what we want. Short, detailed answers show understanding. You have to have understanding in there. Short answers also allow more time for questions. Now, here's a big one. What if a student does not know the answer? We want you to indicate to them, look, don't panic. Do not panic. Do not feel bad. This is new. This is something new that you're doing. Okay? Do not try to make stuff up in the answer because people are going to see it. Simply say, I don't know that. And then you say, fine. This will leave more time for questions that they can answer. And judges may then get in and see things that they have better answers on. All right? Understand the judges are not trying to trip them up. We want them to succeed and feel good about what they did. It's very important. Okay. So those two things took 10 minutes each. Project was 10, robot design was 10. We had 2 minutes of hello, how are you? And so now here we're at the end. And so we're now talking about core values, gracious professionalism, cooperation, and you're judged this in 3 minutes of reflection. So what is core values? Core values is a way of doing things that encourages high quality work, emphasizes the value of others, and respects individuals and the community. If a child is in the middle of doing something and can't do it, don't tell them, don't let another kid push them out of the way and have them do it. In fact, when my kids were growing up, if somebody was on the computer, someone else would come in, usually a younger child was on the older, oh, come here, let me do it. I would come running in like a crazy person. I might be a crazy person. And I would say, you get out of the room and leave them alone. Let them make mistakes. I don't care how long it takes. Let them make mistakes because they will discover how to do it and they will feel good about themselves. If you keep telling a child, no, don't do it, I'll do it, they're never going to learn. And so that's really very important. If you want to give extra homework to a child and say, look, why don't you go home and practice using this, practice using that, and maybe when they come back, they're better at it. But we want to make sure, again, that they feel like they've gotten something out of this, okay? So what are they going to learn? We want to know that they're exploring new skills and ideas, right? That they're being creative and persistent. That's the big key, persistent in solving the problem. A lot of times they just go, oh, I can't do it, and they walk away, okay? You can't have that. You can't, it's got to be another little anecdotal note. My nieces were doing it. And I went over to our house and she's showing me her field. And then she starts crying because they're all upstairs dancing to the presentation they're going to do. And she goes, and I'm stuck down here doing this computer. And she ended up programming everything. And by the end of it, I said to her, look, that's just the way it is. You're the one who knows how to do it. And at the end, you're going to be the reason why any of this works. And she felt better. And at the end, she came back to me and was very excited. She goes, this was great. And I said, see, I said, it's hard, but it's what you're going to want to do. And it's really how you frame it. Okay. We also want to know the impact. We apply what we learn to improve our world. That's part of core values, and that has to be stressed. Inclusion, we respect each other and embrace differences, okay? And as a team, we're stronger when we work together. Everybody has a job, and nobody wants to let down the team when they're doing their job. And we enjoy and celebrate what we do. That's gracious professionalism, okay? And you're going to get 3 minutes to reflect on that. The judges have questions that they'll ask you, and just to have them discuss that. So here's some examples of core values and gracious professionalism. You know, respect for the equipment, good sportsmanship, friendly and polite at all times to all persons. I mean, honestly, we've heard of stories where the kids end up having a fist fight at the practice table because one kid wants to do everything and won't let the others do it. I mean, it happens all the time. You have to look out for that. And if you stand, if that information will go back to the judges, and they will take that into consideration. Cooperation and competition. I mean, believe it or not, once you've mastered a skill, you teach it to someone else so that everyone else can explore and do it, right? You're sharing a spare part or a battery charger with another team so they have a chance to compete. That's important. They call that cooperation, and that is a registered trademark with FIRST. Once you get into the higher levels of this, you'll see it's unbelievable. We hold seminars. One team will hold seminars for everybody else to come to learn all together how to do this better. And it's really one of the things that has made FIRST a great thing. Okay, so that's the end of this presentation. Any questions?
I guess the question I have, Francis, is if there is any relationship between the project that the kids would do and the robot building and the challenge mat? Or are they like two separate independent pieces of work?
Yes, they are completely separate and independent. However, there is a theme, and that happens to be this year, Cargo Connect.
Gotcha. Okay.
So the theme is the only thing that connects them, but the mat and the robot physically have nothing to do with the project.
Okay, got it. Just wanted to confirm that.
So so think about it. It's really two projects. It's really two things in one. You're doing the robot and you're doing the project. And the reason for that is because there's a lot of teams that have kids that are good at building the robot, and there are others who are good at doing the project. And so we're trying to get them all involved, but they all end up with a better, well-rounded understanding of the world based on the fact that they've been exposed to both. I just want to thank everyone and have a great season. If you have any questions, please let me know. Please use the website for anything you need, and good luck.